And you're watching StudyIQ IAS. How was your Holi? I hope every one of you had a very good and prosperous Holi. Well, yesterday I was reading the newspaper, see old habits die hard, and I saw on the newspaper that it was written that the Indian Express will be closed and that is why there will be no edition of today, that is 15th of March. But do you think I've come all the way from my home to this studio just to tell you that there will be no discussion today? Of course not. So in that regard, let us start our today's discussion of the Indian Express analysis of 15th of March, and we begin our today's discussion with important articles that have appeared in yesterday's and day before yesterday's newspaper. And there's a very good reason for it, because we did not have a two session because it was off in StudyIQ IAS. So I decided, so let us discuss our important articles from 13th and 14th of March's newspaper. Now in the first article that we will be covering today, it was an article given in the business section, and it told us that the consumer price index, which is a parameter of measuring inflation in India, it has actually fallen to a 7-month low figure. What are the implications of falling down of inflation rate? We'll understand in our today's discussion. And also, as per the article, it was stated that the cooling down of food inflation was the biggest reason why the CPI levels have fallen down. Also, this very article also told us that the index of industrial production, which actually tells you about the industrial and manufacturing activities happening in India, this has also risen to a higher levels. So we'll understand both of these nuances and the topics of why these are important from my exams perspective, and what are the reasons that why CPI and IIP becomes important, especially for our economy syllabus. Therefore, this is a part of what? This is a part of GS paper 3 syllabus. Then we'll moving on to the next article. This article describes that ASHA workers, who are actually a form of health workers, they are protesting in the state of Kerala. Now you'll think that Kerala is a state which is well known for its health related infrastructure, particularly down at the minutest level in the primary healthcare center. But why healthcare workers in Kerala are protesting against the government? So we'll try to look into it. Also, we'll try to understand what are the roles and responsibilities that these ASHA workers play on a daily basis, which makes them very important cog in the healthcare system of our country. And this article is important from GS paper 2 perspective, because if you look at the syllabus, social sector and related developments, particularly with respect to healthcare, is important from our exams perspective. Then we'll moving on to the next article, that is National Board of Wildlife Role and Impact. Now I understand we have already covered National Board of Wildlife. We have understood some of the details regarding to that body, but this article which appeared in the yesterday's newspaper, it gave a lot of detail. So I felt it was an obligation of me towards you so as to complete this entire article, which is very relevant from our exams perspective. Now these kind of articles, they deal with the body which relates to the changes in protected area of our country, right? So that is why they are important from environment syllabus, that is GS paper 3 syllabus. Then we'll be moving on to the next article, which actually tells us about the World Air Quality Report of 2024, and this report has highlighted that India, it is actually one of the most polluted countries in our country based on some parameters. What are those parameters? What is the rank of India in terms of pollution? Which capital city across the world is the most polluted one? We'll try to understand everything in our today's discussion. Now this article actually again is important from GS paper 3 perspective, particularly because pollution is given directly in the syllabus. Then towards the end, we'll be understanding a Parvatmala project. This Parvatmala project is a project which looks to set up a ropeway projects in many hilly areas as well as urban area to reduce the congestion. And also you can understand, as against the other forms of transport, these ropeways, these are very environmental friendly in nature. So these kind of projects, they are very important as far as the tourism in hill areas are concerned, and also to reduce congestions in the urban areas. Therefore, this kind of an article becomes important from which part of the syllabus? GS paper 3, that is creation of infrastructure. Understood? So these 6 articles in general, 1, 2 and rest 4 will be dealing in our today's discussion. Now, good evening Baga Springs, good evening Augustine, good evening Lydia, good evening Yashi, Kaizen, Amar, Saujanya, Geeta, Gibson, good evening everyone. I hope you had a very good and prosperous Holi. Yeah, even I did. Now the notes for this session will be available on my Telegram channel called as ATS Live. If you haven't subscribed it yet, please make sure to go to this ATS Live channel. You can do so by clicking the right top corner of your mobile app, that is the magnifying glass icon, and upon clicking on that icon you can enter the words ATS Live. It will take you directly to my channel. If you still aren't able to make it to my channel, this is the QR code which you can scan. It will take you directly. Now Namrata, V, good evening both of you. Now let us start our today's discussion with this first article, and if you can see, this article actually appeared in two different pages of the Indian Express newspaper on the day before yesterday on page 10th and 13th. Now if you look at this article on my right, it states that the retail inflation has dropped to a 7-month low figure, and the biggest reason for this is fall in food inflation levels. Right now, food inflation level is at the lowest level since May 2023. Therefore, this news becomes significant, and this article also tells you the trend in the consumer price index in the past 1 year or so. Right. Also, this is a editorial in the newspaper which gives you the analysis that what will be the way forward, particularly for the Reserve Bank of India, now that the inflation has covered or it has cooled down. So what are the expected steps that the RBI will take from few weeks or few days from now? So we'll try to understand everything in this article. What is India's index of industrial production, what is retail inflation, what is food inflation, and what are the consequences of controlling the food inflation in India. Understood? Now let us understand, or let us start our today's discussion by understanding the context of this article. And if you look at the context, it states that the retail inflation has eased to a 7-month low of 3.61 in February as compared to 4.26 in the previous month. Now this reduction in retail inflation is led by a sharp decline in food inflation, and this data is provided by the National Statistical Office, right? National Statistics Office, which is a part of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now food inflation, which is based on Consumer Food Price Index, it has fallen down to 3.7%, which is the lowest since May 2023 when it was 3.919%. Now you will be understanding retail inflation in India is represented by Consumer Price Index combined, right? Now you will be wondering, how is Consumer Price Index different than Consumer Food Price Index? Do not worry, I'll tell you everything today. Also, this article stated that factory output, which is measured by Index of Industrial Production, it has also grown by 5% in January compared to 3.5% in the previous month. So in terms of economy, there is a plenty of good news. First of all, retail inflation and food inflation has reduced, whereas industrial activity, which is highlighted by the Index of Industrial Production, it has increased, right? Now in our today's discussion, what becomes important first is Consumer Price Index. Now Consumer Price Index, as the name itself suggests, it measures the inflation at the retail level, that what the consumers like you and I, we pay at the most bottom of the levels of the retail sector is concerned. That inflation is measured by Consumer Price Index. And why it is important? Because eventually it is people like you and I that drive the economy by our spending, right? So if the inflation would be higher, our spending would naturally be reduced. So that is why measuring the inflation at retail level is very important. Now who calculates this Consumer Price Index? As I already told you, National Statistics Office, which comes under the control of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And the base year for this calculation, it is very important. Please make sure it is 2012. It is not 2011-12, only 2012. Now this figure is released every month on 12th of every month, and the figures which are being released in the mid of March, it is the figure of February month's inflation. Now the coverage under this Consumer Price Index, which is combined, it provides the complete coverage in both urban and rural area. And does it include inflation in the services sector? Yes, it does. Does it include indirect taxes like GST, etc., and how it impacts inflation? Yes, it does. And the most important part of CPI is that it is targeted by the Reserve Bank of India. As you can understand, Reserve Bank has a statutory authority or statutory responsibility to keep the inflation at the rate of 4 plus minus 2% of CPI, right? We'll go into this detail quite soon. Now, the consumer price index, it not just calculates the inflation at the food level, right? It understands what are the expenses that the people make on their day-to-day basis. For example, people like you and I, we spend on food, we spend on clothing, we spend on these pens and markers, we spend on stationery, we spend on fuel, etc., electricity, everything, right? So that is why the consumer price index, it understands that for every 100 rupees or so, how much money we are deviating, or how much money we are spending for food related purposes, for electricity related purposes, for housing related purposes, for clothing related purposes, and assigns a different weight category, right? Now, as you can see, food is probably the most important thing that the consumers spend on a daily basis, right? So that is why the weightage given to food and beverages is the highest in the consumer price index, that is 45.86%, followed by pan, tobacco, intoxicant. They have a very low weight of 2.38%, whereas clothing and footwear, housing, these have higher weights as compared to pan and intoxicant. Fuel and light, which includes electricity, LPG, kerosene, but it does not include petrol and diesel, it has the weight of 6.8%. Now you'll think, where does inflation of petrol and diesel is calculated in CPI? It is calculated in the transportation, right, which is the part of miscellaneous sector. Now, I told you, right, the food inflation has reduced, and the country measures food inflation with consumer food price index. So, do you think consumer food price index calculates the weightage of food and beverage sector? The answer is no. I'll tell you what is consumer food price index. Now, separately from the consumer price index, the MOSPI, that is National Statistics Office, it also calculates consumer food price index. But the weightage of consumer food price index is not the direct weightage given to food and beverage sector. Rather, it is somewhat different, because the weightage for calculating consumer food price index, it includes our spending on cereals, meat, fish, egg, milk, etc. Each and every these things. However, it does not include non-alcoholic beverages. It does not include prepared meals, snacks, sweet, and it does not include pan, tobacco, and other intoxicants. So, it includes some of the items of food and beverages minus non-alcoholic beverages minus prepared meals and snacks minus sweets, and it also does not include this pan, tobacco, and intoxicants. So please remember that. So in terms of weightage, the consumer food price index has weighted somewhere around 39.6% of total consumer price index. So this is how we calculate the consumer food price index, which is a subset of the food and beverage section in the consumer price index. Understood? Now, as you can see from this graph, you can safely assume that the RBI, through its monetary policy objectives, has been able to bring down the inflation rate, which went above the 6% here to now just 3.61%, right? So in this regard, you have to understand the efficacy of RBI's policy, and now that it has controlled the inflation, what it is expected to in the times to come, right? So very briefly, let me explain it to you. This is the Reserve Bank of India. Now, Reserve Bank of India in general has two objectives. The most important objective of Reserve Bank of India is to control the levels of inflation, right? And why does it control the levels of inflation? Because it is statutorily mandated on the RBI through the amendment of RBI Act 1934 that it is mandated to control inflation at the levels between 2 to 6% of CPI, right? So this is the responsibility or the primary responsibility of the RBI, that is to control inflation. And what happens when there is an inflation in India? What is the most obvious fact that can lead to inflation? That during inflation we see there is an increase in money supply in the economy, right? So this is the sole reason why inflation happens in the economy. So how does RBI controls this inflation? Naturally, it has to reduce this money supply, then only it can think of controlling the inflation, right? So what it does, it increases the interest rates in the economy. That is, it increases repo rate, it increases other parameters like it increases CRR, it increases SLR. So this is how RBI controls the money supply, by contractionary fiscal policy. So all of these measures which looks to reduce the money supply, these are called as contractionary monetary policy. As you can understand, the name contractionary itself suggests you have to reduce the money supply, right? Other names of contractionary money supply is called as tight money supply. It is also called as dear money supply, right? So this was the primary objective of RBI, that is to control the inflation. But now RBI has controlled the inflation. So the secondary objective of RBI becomes to promote the growth in India. And how does it promote growth in India? By increasing the money supply, right? So what RBI does in cases of promotion of economic growth, that it looks to increase money supply. And how does it looks to increase money supply? It has to reduce the market interest rates, okay? And what happens when you reduce market interest rates? What kind of an monetary policy it is called? It is called as an expansionary monetary policy, right? And in other terms, it is also called as easy money policy, and it is also known as easy money policy. So these are the examples of how the primary responsibility of RBI, as it is given in the RBI Act itself, is to control inflation. And after inflation is controlled through contractionary monetary policy, the focus of RBI shifts to promoting economic growth in our country. And how does RBI promote economic growth in our country? By following an expansionary or an easy money supply, which means reduction in policy rates. So in terms or in days and weeks going forward, you will see that now RBI is successfully able to control inflation. It will look to reduce the interest rates in our economy by reducing repo rate, by reducing SLR, by reducing CRR. Understood? Any doubt in this? Any doubt you have in what the way forward of RBI will be? Now it will look to promote growth by following an expansionary and easy money supply. That is why if you look at the second article that I had taken today, it has said that now going forward RBI will reduce the interest rates in our economy. Now if you have understood everything, please solve this question. जल्दी बताओ सही आंसर क्या है. Consider the following statements regarding consumer price index. CPI is a measure of retail inflation that tracks price changes of fixed basket of goods and services over time. The second statement, CPI used by the RBI for inflation targeting under its monetary policy framework. And CPI, it is published monthly by the Ministry of Finance, and it includes separate indices for rural, urban and combined categories. Option A. Why is statement third incorrect? I told you it is published every month on 12th of the date. Well, third statement is incorrect because it is not Ministry of Finance, rather Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, which is responsible for publishing the CPI figures, whereas first and second statement are straightforward, hence these are correct. Yes, Ayush, you are correct. Kaizen monthly, yes, you're right. CPI is published by NS. So every one of you is correct. So option A is the right answer. Now that article itself told us, right, that the index of industrial production has increased. So in this regard, let us also understand what is index of industrial production. Now, as the name itself suggests, this index, it measures the changes in the industrial production in an economy. And for India, index of industrial production, it is published with the base year of 2011 and 12. What was the base year of consumer price index? It was 2012. Whereas for WPI, for IIP, the base year is 2011 and 12. So that is why these are different. Please remember this. Now this index of industrial production, it is published every month like CPI figures by National Statistical Office, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Right now this index of industrial production, it is compiled with data which is sourced from different agencies which turn are receiving data from the producing factories and establishment. So all of these data are coagulated and then published in a form of index of industrial production, right? Now in cases of consumer price index, I told you, right, the weightage given to the different kind of spendings are different. Similarly, even for index of industrial production, the weightage given to different sectors of economy are also different. There are two types based on which the industries are classified. First type is known as sectoral classification. Here the industries are classified into three forms: mining, manufacturing and electricity. And as you can see from this table that I have attached from the government's website, the highest weightage is given to the manufacturing sector, that is 77.633, whereas mining has the second highest weightage, 14.373%. The least weightage is given to electricity, which is very close to 8%. So why are base years constant? Well, for base we have to measure changes in inflation, right? So how do we measure changes in inflation? When we fix a price of a commodity at a particular year, right? So then only we'll be able to compare, right, with respect to the base year, how much the inflation rate is changing. So for accounting purposes, every few years or so we fix a particular year as base year, and which year is chosen as a base year? This is a particular year where the economy was witnessing a decent enough growth. Inflation levels were quite average. It was not very high, it was not very low. So those years are used as a base year. So that is why currently most of the base years are at the levels of 2011 or 2012, right? Now there is a need for revision of the base years, and now the next base year will also be some year which has witnessed a moderate economic growth with a moderate level of inflation. Understood? Sir, is the base year has any specialty? Yes, those base years have to be a very moderate base year. That is, the growth was not very high, the growth was not very low, or same with respect to inflation. Both of those parameters have to be very moderate and stable, then only that year will be used as a base year. So this is the quality of base years, right? Now there is another category which we use to identify the industry, that is known as used based classification. So these are identified as primary good industries, capital good industries, intermediary industries, infrastructure good industries. And as you can see from the weights given to different kinds of the goods, highest weightage is given to the sector of primary goods, followed by intermediate goods, followed by consumer non-durable goods, right? So just do not remember these items in detail, just remember manufacturing has the highest weightage here, followed by primary goods has the highest weightage in the use based classification. Understood? Now let us try to understand this practice question. With reference to index of industrial production, consider the following statements. It measures changes in volume of industrial production in 8 core industries only. The second statement, IIP is compiled and published every month by Office of Economic Advisor, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And the third, it gives highest weightage to the manufacturing sector. Tell me which of the following is or are correct. Sorry, I have to identify incorrect statement here. So please let me know the incorrect statements in this particular question. Yes, no war or pandemic situation. Study Paradise, you are correct. Which one is incorrect, Ayush? Study Paradise, you have to identify incorrect statements. So the first statement, it measures changes in volume of industrial production in 8 core industries only. This is incorrect. This is actually index for 8 core industries, that is known as the different index. IIP, it measures changes in the entire industry sector, right? So first statement is incorrect. Second statement, IIP is compiled and published every month. This is correct, but not by Office of Economic Advisor, but rather by National Statistics Office. So second statement also is incorrect. It gives highest weightage to the manufacturing sector. This I have already told you, it is correct. So first and second are incorrect. Therefore B, only 2 is the right answer. Yes, option B is correct. Lydia, Bagaspings, Kaizen, Ayush, Study Paradise, you all are correct. Yes. Now let us move to the next article of the day. This article appeared in yesterday's newspaper on the explained section, and it tells us that the ASHA workers in Kerala, they are under protest and they are demanding for hike in their honorariums and other benefits. So what is important for our today's discussion? Not what is the cause of grievances for ASHA workers in Kerala particular, but the overall cause of grievances. And to understand the grievances, we also need to understand what are their roles and responsibilities, right? So in this regard, let us try to understand in detail about the ASHA workers. Now, Kerala ASHA Workers Association, they were protesting outside the state secretariat in Kerala for release of pending dues and to increase the honorarium from 7,000 rupees to 21,000 rupees and to access retirement benefits of 5 lakh rupees. Understood? Now, this is just the context. You need not remember the exact figures given in this context. What I am about to tell you, you have to remember that. Now, ASHA, this is a short form for Accredited Social Health Activist. Now, these kind of workers, they were originally brought by the National Rural Health Mission, as these band of workers, they were engaged in the healthcare sector to aid and assist the Anganwadi workers of the Integrated Child Development Scheme. So both of these workers coexist, that is Anganwadi workers and ASHA workers, and the purpose of these two workers is to increase the participation of marginalized section of our society in India's healthcare sector, right? Now ASHA workers, they will be the first point of contact for any person who want any health related services, especially people who belong to the deprived section of the population. And who are the deprived section of the population? Women, children, people belonging to marginalized sections of the communities, and they face difficulty in accessing health services. And it might be anything. It might be that the health services are quite far from their location. They might be afraid in approaching these kind of healthcare sectors. So to make things easier for them, we enlist the support of ASHA workers. And the ASHA scheme is presently in place in all the states and union territories except one state, that is the state of Goa. So please remember these facts. I worked with ASHA workers during COVID pandemic. They truly worked hard. Yes, indeed. Actually, Bagaspings, thank you for your contribution, and we must thank all ASHA workers for their tireless work. These kind of workers, now whenever they do the work, will not feel the need of them, but as soon as they stop doing the work, now will feel something is missing, and this is what their silent contribution in the society is, right? Now every state, technically they are mandated to employ at least one ASHA worker per every 1,000 people. Now these ASHA workers, they receive basic healthcare training and also equipped with standard drug kit which allows them to deliver first contact healthcare. Suppose these ASHA workers, they have contraceptive pills, they have first aid kits, they have many medicines that can be utilized for children and women in their day-to-day need. And the purpose of giving these kind of kits to ASHA workers is that they can eventually send or sell these items to the marginalized section of the community who are actually feeling the need to buy these items. Also, these ASHA workers, they are chosen through a very rigorous process of selection which involves various community groups, self-help groups, Anganwadi institutions, block nodal officers, district nodal officers, and also the Gram Sabha, right? Now, the next question might be in your mind is, what do these ASHA workers do in general? First of all, the primary intention of getting an ASHA worker in your rural area is to help disseminate awareness of good health practices, particularly in the people belonging to marginalized communities, as they should utilize available public healthcare services. And to facilitate this utilization, we require the help of a volunteer. And who these volunteers are? These are ASHA workers. Now, they are helping people to access primary healthcare centers, and not just primary healthcare centers but even district hospitals. Also, these ASHA workers, they support maternal and child healthcare, which we understand in India is something that we lag behind in. Also, they enforce immunization drive and help with family planning and disease based prevention and mitigation program. And as one of the comments said, Bagaspings, they actually worked pretty hard during the COVID-19 pandemic. They help people make aware of the use of masks. They help people make aware of the need for social distancing. They also help the government understand what is the viral load in the particular community. If some persons in that community might be feeling the symptoms of COVID-19 pandemic, the ASHA workers themselves alerted the health authorities and allowed the health authorities to control the movement of that people. So these kind of work, these are very tireless work, not a thankful work, but these are very essential. Understood? Also, these ASHA workers, they carry out periodic home visits and keep a record of the progress that the marginalized section of communities make in their healthcare objectives in their diaries. Understood? So these are the day-to-day works that the ASHA workers are engaged in, right? Now, what is the selection criteria of ASHA workers? Now, there are different criteria in both rural and urban area. In rural area, ASHA workers primarily might be a woman who is a resident of the village. She might be married, widowed, divorced, preferably in the age group of 25 to 45 years of age, and also she needs to be literate. Why does she need to be literate? Because she is actually keeping the records of the community in the register. She is also helping to enlist the and also making people aware of the services that are available in the society itself, and also she should be preferably qualified up to 10th standard in education. Whereas for urban area, the ASHA worker must be a woman resident of the slum and vulnerable clusters, because only those people who are living in these kind of areas will be actually knowing what the problem is there in these kind of areas, right? And also they belong to a particular vulnerable group which have been identified by the city and district health council for the selection of ASHA workers. And in addition to that, they must have good communication and leadership skill. Then only you'll think that these workers will able to actually motivate the other women in the area. Now the states, they have been given the flexibility in case the women, they are not able to meet these criteria, then the state can even relax the criteria, right? Now, what is the compensation or what is the payment for the services that are given by the ASHA workers are actually made to them? Now, I have to realize that the ASHA worker in general, in terms of book knowledge, these are primarily categorized as a honorary volunteers, right? But even then, they are compensated for her time in specific situations. Suppose they are participating in training, they are ensuring attendance of every woman in the area, they are also seeking monthly reviews and other meetings. So it is all but natural that the government should actually pay ASHA worker for her contribution, which is an immense contribution in the society. And in general, in every state, ASHA worker, they get a salary of fixed salary of 3,000 rupees every month, right? So in general, the monthly income of ASHA worker, that fluctuates from 3,000 to 7,000, and the rest 4,000 rupees that the ASHA worker is eligible to get, it is only given to the ASHA worker if she meets certain criteria. For example, she is eligible to get incentives offered under various national healthcare programs. So if she meets the objective of these programs, she'll be able to get incremental benefits. Also, she should have income from the social marketing of certain healthcare products like contraceptives, like medicines, when she sells it to other women. That also helps ASHA worker to get some kind of an income. So these are kind of income. But the moot point of this discussion is that you can understand in today's age and time, is rupees 3,000 enough for a woman to survive? The answer obviously is no. So that is why we must, and the government must ensure that the ASHA workers should get remunerated in according to the roles and responsibilities, which from today's discussion we have understood that these roles and responsibilities are immense, right? Only females are ASHA workers? Yes. Now, let us deal with this practice question. Consider the following statements regarding accredited social health activists, right, or ASHA workers. Now, ASHA workers, they are employed as per the permanent government employees under the National Health Mission. Their role is to act as a bridge between community and public healthcare system, promoting maternal and child health services. ASHA workers, they receive a fixed monthly salary along with the performance based incentives for specific health related activities. Please let me know the correct answer quickly. Quickly. Option D. If Ayush says option D, anyone else? Option D. Kaizen says option D. Well, The second statement straightforward correct, third statement straightforward correct, first statement it is incorrect. Why? These are not permanent government employees, rather they are honorary volunteers, right? I told you in the first slide itself, you're not paying attention. So first statement becomes incorrect. These are not permanent government employees. Yes, Bagas Pinks. So first is incorrect, second and third is right. The option B is the right answer. Sir, why Goa doesn't have ASHA workers? Well, I do not know the reason. Actually, the time did not allow me. I saw that it is implemented in every state except Goa. So please remember, you just need to remember the details, need not get into the nitty-gritties of the articles, right? Now, as I tell you every day, we are currently offering admissions in our Sampoorn batch. But why am I telling you this today? Because today is the last date where you can get the discounted rates for the Sampoorn batch. And how to enroll for Sampoorn batch? It is quite easy. Go to the StudyIQ website. And as soon as you go to the StudyIQ website, you will see that the courses are available right now. First, you need to create an account, click on explore courses, and we understand that there are many students who are watching this session. They might be not that well versed in Hindi. And also Hindi might not be their mother tongue. So for that, we have provided English exclusive batch under the heading UPSC IS English. So as soon as you click UPSC IS English, the first tile is for the P2I Foundation batch under the Sampoorn batch of 2026. Now, as you can see, the discounts are valid only up till today, that is 15th on March, and it is available at a discounted rate of 34,999. But you can get even more discounts on this item by clicking buy now. You can add promo code here, and the promo code must be flashing on the bottom half of your screen. So click on enter coupon code and add ATS live and click on apply. Now, as soon as you add ATS live, you can see the course fees has reduced from 34,999 to 27,999. That is the discount of almost 7,000 rupees, which is a huge amount of money. So please make sure to enlist for our courses that are available, and do not forget to add the code ATS Live if you want to get maximum discounts, right? Now, and believe me when I say this, this is the best available course online which takes care of your every need, from your study material to your class teaching, and also from your test series to every other detail that are in form of mentorship. All of this is available in our platinum courses. Understood? Now let us move to the another article of the day. This article actually is a very big article on the National Board of Wildlife, and although I've already covered National Board of Wildlife about 10 days ago, but I thought we should revise it with more details so as to get a holistic understanding of this topic, and why this National Board of Wildlife found itself in a big column in the Indian Express Explain section. This is because the meeting of National Board of Wildlife has happened after more than 10 years, and this was Prime Minister Modi's first meeting of National Board of Wildlife. And how much time has it been since Narendra Modi is the Prime Minister of India? More than 10 years. So more than 10 years after assuming the office, Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired his first ever meeting of the National Board of Wildlife last week in the Gir National Park in Gujarat. Now, while in the meeting, he reviewed a host of flagship conservation programs, and addition to many conservation programs were also made. Now, why this is important? Because the last full body meeting of the National Board of Wildlife happened when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister of India back in 2012. So that is why this meeting is happening after so long, and that is why this becomes important from our exams perspective, right? So in this regard, let us understand the roles and responsibilities of a National Board of Wildlife, and what are the challenges or what are the controversies regarding the meeting of National Board of Wildlife. Now, first, let us deal with the nature of this body. This is a statutory body. And why is this a statutory body? Because it was formed as per the statute or an act passed by the Indian Parliament, that is Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Now, this National Board of Wildlife is country's apex body, and it deals with matters related to framing of wildlife policies, conservation of wildlife, forest, and also giving recommendations to the government in setting up of new national parks and sanctuaries. And the most important roles and responsibility of National Board of Wildlife is that no alteration to the boundaries of the national park and wildlife sanctuary can take place without the explicit permission of the National Board of Wildlife. So this is the most important task that the National Board of Wildlife undertakes. Now, as you can understand, the meeting of National Board of Wildlife is happening after more than 10 years. So does that mean that the functioning of National Board of Wildlife was actually plagued, or was it not happening? The answer is no, because for that we have a standing committee of wildlife. But before understanding standing committee of wildlife, let us understand the composition of National Board of Wildlife. Now, the composition of National Board of Wildlife, it includes 47 members, and the head of National Board of Wildlife, that is the ex officio chairman, is the Prime Minister of India. The vice chairperson is the minister in charge of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, whereas other members of this body, it includes Chief of Army Staff, yes, Chief of Ministry of Information Broadcasting, Ministry of Defence, Ministry of Tribal Affairs, Department of Expenditure under the Finance Ministry, Ministry of, and members of Parliament, which includes 2 members from Lok Sabha and 1 members from Rajya Sabha. And in addition to all these ex officio members, 10 eminent conservationists, ecologists and environmentalists, in addition to 5 persons from the NGO sector, these are also members of the National Board of Wildlife. So, you are having representation from the government, and you are having representation from the ecology department and also from the civil society organization, and that is why you provide an all-inclusive membership in this body, so that they can legislate and they can recommend on policies that should regulate our country's wildlife sector. And as I told you, right, the functioning of the National Board of Wildlife on a day-to-day basis happens through the Standing Committee of National Board of Wildlife. And the chairperson of this Standing Committee of Wildlife is actually the Union Minister of Environment and Forest Change. And this body meets every 3 months, and it considers everything or the roles and responsibilities of the National Board of Wildlife. Now, this committee is delegated with key tasks such as appraising the projects which are situated in forest land, inside and even around the national parks of the country, and also within 10 kilometers from the protected areas. Now, for example, if there is a dam which is being built in an area and it is expected to submerge a part of a national park, so the permission of whether or not to construct that dam is given by the Standing Committee of National Board of Wildlife. But this is not the actual National Board of Wildlife, it is just a committee which has the delegated powers of National Board of Wildlife. So in that regard, the Standing Committee's decision are recommendatory and not mandatory in nature as against National Board of Wildlife. Therefore, the Environment Ministry, technically it can overrule the decision of the communities. But in general, as we see, the chairperson of Standing Board of Committee is the Union Minister of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. So even if the Environment Ministry has the power to overrule the decision, in general terms it does not overrule the decision of the Standing Committee of National Board of Wildlife. Now, why has the National Board of Wildlife in recent times has actually faced criticism? Now, over the past decade or so, National Board of Wildlife, including its Standing Committee, it has passed many projects or developmental projects which in a way can harm our ecological development. For example, Ken-Betwa river linking project, the inclusion of this project, it also includes construction of a Dhaudhan Dam, right? Now, this Dhaudhan Dam, upon its completion, will submerge actually about 100 square kilometers area of the Panna National Park and Tiger Reserve. Now, despite this submergence of the land of a protected area, the permission for setting up of this project was given by National Board of Wildlife. So this was a controversy. Also, an oil exploration project of Vedanta, which is a private sector company, it will happen in the eco-sensitive zone of the Holangpar Gibbon Sanctuary, which is home to an endangered species of Hulok gibbon, which is India's only species. It was also given, followed by in 2021 that the Galathea Bay Sanctuary located in Andaman and Nicobar Island, which is the nesting site of leatherback sea turtle, it was also denotified as a national park, right? So these kind of protected areas, their status have been reduced. Some developmental project, even though they destroy a part of these protected areas, they have been given approval. That is why this is a source of controversy. And also in recent time, we have seen that the after BJP government came into power in 2014, the government, it appointed or it reconstituted the National Board of Wildlife. But when reconstitution of National Board of Wildlife, it only appointed 3 non-governmental members as against 5, which actually gave away a suspicion that it wants to reduce the powers of a civil society organization, and one of these three non-governmental members, it included a member from Gujarat Ecological Education Research Foundation, which actually is an autonomous body which is a part of Gujarat government. So technically you can't say that this body is actually free from government's power, right? So these were the reasons why this board in recent times have faced problem, right? Now, let's see if you can solve this particular question or not, right? Consider the following statements regarding National Board of Wildlife. Please let me know the correct answer quickly. National Board of Wildlife, it was constituted in 2003 as a statutory body under Wildlife Protection Act and the Standing Committee of NBWL. It is chaired by Prime Minister. It meets every 3 months to review and approve projects in protected areas. So, which of the following statement is or are correct? Please let me know quickly. Well, while giving prelims now, you should inculcate a habit of rereading the questions again. Why am I saying so? Because when you are in hurry, there's always a possibility that you will mark the question incorrectly by not reading it properly. For example, in second statement, Standing Committee of NBWL, what did I tell you? NBWL, it is chaired by the Prime Minister of India, whereas Standing Committee of NBWL, which has some delegated power of NBWL and it makes day-to-day decisions and it meets every 3 months, it is chaired by the Ministry of Environment or the minister who is in charge of Ministry of Environment, right? So, option C is incorrect. Study Paradise, Lydia, you are incorrect. So is Kaizen and FTY. Amar, yes, you are right. Baga Sphinx, yes, you are right. Option A is correct. Second statement becomes incorrect because Standing Committee of NBWL, it is chaired by Minister who is in charge of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, right? First is straightforward, it is a correct statement. Now, moving to the next article of the day. This article actually appeared in the Indian Express newspapers on the front and the explain section of the newspaper, and this article actually talks about the World Air Quality Report, and it also tells that a city in the northeastern part of our country, that is Brynyath, it has been categorized as the city having the world's worst air, right? So in this regard, let us understand some of the details about this particular report. This World Air Quality Report of 2024, it was released by a Swiss company known as IQ Air, and it highlights several air pollution levels worldwide. So what are the important facts which is given in the article? Let us try to understand this. Now, the key findings given in the report, it tells us that the most polluted capital city in the world is none other than New Delhi. It remains the most polluted capital city in the world with an actual or annual PM 2.5 concentration of 9.1 micrograms per meter cube. And the other polluted capital cities in the world is Jamena, which is the capital of Chad, as well as Dhaka, which is the capital of our neighboring Bangladesh. Now, New Delhi is actually topped the list of being the most polluted capital city in the world every year between 2018 to 2024, except 2022, when Jamena overtook it as the most polluted capital city. So, it has been the topper of this list every year from 2018 to 2024, except 2022. Now, in terms of most polluted countries, India stands at 5th position. First is Chad, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Congo and India. So you can see among the most polluted countries, all of these countries are located either in Africa or in South Asia, right? Now, the pollution standards. This article actually states that the World Health Organization, according to its guidelines, the particulate matter 2.5 microgram, the presence of these should be of about 5 micrograms, right? And this measure, it is used to measure the concentration of pollutants or particulate matter either in air and gas. So according to World Health Organization, the adequate level below which the city or the region will not be constituted as a polluted country or a polluted city, it is the level of 5 microgram per meter cube. Now, India or Indian bodies, they have relaxed this guidelines quite a bit. Now, India's Central Pollution Control Board, it categorizes this pollution limit at 40 micrograms per meter cube, which is 8 times more than the WHO guidelines. And even after this relaxed guidelines of the Central Pollution Control Board, India's actual PM 2.5 levels on an average is 50.6 microgram, which is more than India's own limit, and it is way more or even 10 times more than the WHO's limit, right? Now, in terms of India, let us understand the scale of this pollution crisis in India. Now, India ranks as the 5th most polluted country, that I have already told you. The average levels of PM 2.5 pollution is 50.6 microgram, which is more than 10 times the guideline of WHO, and India was 3rd most polluted country earlier. Its standing has improved because of 7% decline in the PM 2.5 levels since 2024, but still this pollution remains quite heavy in terms of the global average. Now, world's most polluted city, out of 10 most polluted city in the world, 6 are in India, and out of 20 most polluted cities in the world, 13 are in India. Now, the most polluted of Indian cities, not the capital cities, but in general, are Brinyat, which is in northeastern part of the country in Meghalaya, Mullanpur, which is in Punjab, Faridabad, which is in Haryana, Loni, and Gurgaon, which are in Haryana, right? So, these are the most polluted of the cities in India. Now, the most polluted city in India is the city of Brinyat, which is in Meghalaya. Now, I am pronouncing this as Brinyat. Anyone from Meghalaya, they can let me know the correct way to pronounce this statement. Now, it is the most polluted metropolitan area globally, and the PM 2.5 concentration, what did I tell you about the World WHO guideline? It was 5 microgram per meter cube, and compared this with the actual pollution levels in the city of Brinyat, which is more than 25 times the WHO limit, right? So, this is very high in terms of concentration. Now, in terms of the location of Brinyat, this is located very close to the Meghalaya Assam border. Here, it is quite close to the city of Guwahati, and it is quite close to the Umtru river, right? So, this is the Brinyat, which is located in the state of Meghalaya. Now, let us understand the reasons why is actually Brinyat so populated. Now, first is the levels of industrialization. Now, Brinyat is only 20 kilometers from Guwahati and 65 kilometers from the capital city of Meghalaya, that is Shillong, and that is why it has become quite a major industrial region. Now, this region witnesses huge amount of coke production, cement manufacturing, ferroalloy, steel distillation, brick making units, and the industries, they are set up in this particular town, particularly due to proximity of the coal reserves in Meghalaya region. Meghalaya is one of the largest producer of coal in India. Also, it has a large presence of rat hole coal minings, which we have already discussed in our, and also the water is supplied adequately, which is sourced from the Umtru river. So, these are the two reasons why industries have actually mushroomed in the region of Brinyat, and this contributes to the huge levels of pollution. Also, vehicular emissions are a big factor in the pollution levels, as major transit point of heavy diesel vehicles which are transporting these industrial materials. These are transporting it on unpaved and roads which are filled with road dust, and it leads to huge emissions of PM 2.5 particulate matter. Also, there is a basin like topography in the region which actually prevents the pollution from being dispersed into the wider area. So, because of these factors, the pollution levels in Brinyat is quite high. That is why this is the world's most polluted metropolitan region. Now, based on this information, let us see if you can solve this particular question or not. Good evening, Krishna. The epic one. Well, these kind of email IDs now we used to make in 7th or 8th classes. Sorry, no offense. Good to know you, Krishna. Now, Krishna, let's see if you can solve this question, okay? With reference to 2024 World Air Quality Report, consider the following statement. The report suggests that severe air pollution is no longer confined to larger urban centers, but it is also affecting smaller industrial regions. And the decline in India's overall PM 2.5 levels in 2024 compared to 2023 signifies a positive trend. But the country still ranks among the most polluted regions. So, which of these two statements are correct? Bhagas Ping says C, or Ayush says C. Yes, both of you are correct. These are straightforward questions, but I've formed these statements such that you can actually get misled by these statements. So if you watch these kind of flourishy statements in your prelims, don't get stressed. Just read the statements properly, and I'll be sure after watching these kind of sessions, you'll be able to solve these kind of questions. Okay. So both of these statements are correct. Lydia, please have a look at it. No, option A is not right. There is a decline in overall PM 2.5 level, as you can see from our discussion. Actually, the levels of pollution declined by 7%. But despite this decline, India still ranks among the most polluted of the countries, that it ranks at the 5th level, right? So, first statement and second statement both are correct. Okay. Now let us move to the last article of the day. This article actually saw in the PIB, it states a Parvatmala scheme, which is actually a national ropeway development program, right? Now this article actually tells us that the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs, it has given its permission to two major ropeway projects in the state of Uttarakhand, that is Govind Ghat Hemkund Sahib ropeway and Sonprayag Kedarnath ropeway, both of which is more than 12 kilometers in length, right? Now this Parvatmala program is actually a government initiative to develop ropeway infrastructure in hilly and congested urban areas, and it was launched in the Union Budget of 2022 and 23 under the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, right? And the implementing agency of this scheme is National Highway Logistic Management Limited, which functions under the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, right? Now the objective of this program is to develop ropeways, as it is an alternative transport mode which is quite useful in hilly areas, right? Because to connect one hill from the other, you need to make a long road, which is in difficult terrain, can be quite cost prohibitive in nature. But the easier way is to connect these two hills with the help of ropeway, right? So it helps not just provide you a transport material or transport mode, but it can also be made at a much cheaper cost as compared to the bridges and roadways, right? And it also helps improve connectivity, which will eventually prove quite beneficial for tourism, pilgrimage, and even in remote areas. And it also helps reducing the travel time immensely, and it also overall can boost local economies and provide job opportunities to people who are living in these areas, because you can understand, particularly in hilly areas, there are no presence, or there are very scarce presence of industrial units. So people primarily depend on tourism and on pilgrimage to meet their daily livelihood requirements. Now, the features of this scheme is that this will be implemented based on a public-private partnership. Here, the contribution, or the majority of the contribution, that is 60%, will be made by Government of India. And one of the key features of this scheme is that it provides or promotes indigenous component requirement, that at least 50% of the ropeway components that will be used under this project, they have to be manufactured in India. Also, this will provide environmental sustainability, because these ropeways have minimal land and ecological impact, and also as compared to emissions overall, they are quite low in emissions. Now the coverage and scope of this project is to develop over 250 railway projects covering 1200 kilometers in 5 years, and the focus area of this scheme, please pay close attention, is Himalayan states, that is Uttarakhand, Himachal, Jammu Kashmir, Arunachal, Sikkim, etc., and also congested urban centers, right? Sir, so sir, what was need to do here? I know, sir, need to make better connectivity. Sorry, Krishna, I did not understand you. Will this be Manrega, sir? What will be Manrega? Please let me know. How will these projects destroy business opportunities for many people? Well, with reference to Parvatmala program, consider the following statements. The Parvatmala program was launched by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change to promote sustainable tourism. Incorrect. This program was brought by Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. Now the program, it aims to develop ropeways as an alternative mode of transport in Himalayan states only. Again incorrect. I told you focus is on Himalayan state, but it also looks to consider these kind of projects in the urban areas, and this project will be funded by private entities in entirety with exclusive rights given to user charges for 20 years. Now I told you this will be funded by both public and private sector organizations. However, the majority of the funding, that is 60% of the funding, will be made by Government of India, right? So third statement also incorrect. Now you have to identify incorrect statement. All of these three are incorrect. So option D, that is 1, 2 and 3 is the right answer, right? I know what is Manrega, Baga Spinks. Will locals be hired under this? Under which scheme are you talking about? Well, if you still have doubt, please ask me in the comment section. So this was all from my side in our today's discussion. The notes for this session will be available as usual on my Telegram channel ATS Live. So please have a very good weekend. We'll see each other on Monday at 4 p.m. like every day. So please have a very good weekend. And this is all from my side for today. Have a very good weekend.